The end destination for today is the town of Avontuur. It's of course the Afrikaans word for adventure, and what an adventure this series has been so far.
In this series, I ride the Big Three to commemorate the extraordinary legacy of Thomas Bain, master road builder in South Africa. This is the spectacular Swartberg Pass, the challenging Baviaanskloof, and the beautiful Prince Alfred's Pass. It takes me on a journey of more than 2,200 kilometers from Cape Town all the way to Port Elizabeth and back. Thanks for joining me on this experience and to share the views.
Good morning and welcome back to Weiner's View, and welcome here to the beautiful Uitspan Guest Farm where I stayed the night. They booked me into the permanent caravans here, and Nico, I'm just waving to Nico there. He was my friendly host at Uitspan. Where is Uitspan? Of course, Uitspan is here on the western side of the beautiful Baviaanskloof, and this is part of riding the Big Three. I'm calling this series Riding the Big Three, of course referring to three of the most significant and probably some of the most beautiful roads and passes built by master road builder Thomas Bain. And the three roads are the Swartberg Pass, which I did earlier in this series, and then the second one is the Baviaanskloof, which I did in the previous video and will continue today. And then the last of the Big Three will be the Prince Alfred Pass that runs from Uniondale to Knysna. But for today, we're just going to complete Baviaanskloof. My end destination for this trip is the town of Avontuur. So it's only about, 100 kilometers or so. And I will make a stop also in the beautiful town of Uniondale. But I'm looking forward to just ride this final part of the Baviaanskloof. It's a bit of a bumpy start. It's a bit of a chill in the air, but I think it will be heating up a bit. But the Baviaanskloof, if you've not seen the previous video, please go and have a look. What an extraordinary ride. I think this is one of Thomas Bain's best roads that he built. This is also one of his last. He completed this in 1890. It is a 200 kilometer road running all the way from Potensie to Willowmore. But of course the parts that goes through the Baviaanskloof is where the most difficult road building took place, and you actually cross a few passes. You start with the Kombrink Pass, then you do the Holgat Pass, then you do the Grasnek Pass, and now we're going to do the fourth pass in the Baviaanskloof. This is the beautiful Nuwekloof Pass, and you can see it starting there in front already. Welcome back to the channel, and I hope you will be enjoying this trip with me today. I'm of course looking forward to it. I've been thinking about doing the Baviaanskloof ever since the channel of Weiner's View started, and I'm so pleased that I managed to do it safely yesterday, and I of course looking forward to also safely completing it today. So if you've not caught up with this series, it is an extensive series. I took a whole week to do an extensive ride all the way from Cape Town to Port Elizabeth, of course taking the back roads, doing the beautiful dirt roads, and riding to Thomas Bain's passes. So it took me about 1,200 kilometers just to get to Port Elizabeth from Cape Town, and I'm taking quite a number of detours back. I started in Port Elizabeth again yesterday, and today I'm continuing, but eventually I will end up in Cape Town again. And all of this, of course, I'm doing on my trusted Honda CRF 300 Rally. This is the entrance or the start of the Nuwekloof Pass, I believe. How beautiful. Now, building this road must have been a huge task. Baviaanskloof Interpretive Center. Quite modern buildings. I'm not sure what the purpose of that is. Yeah, so this is actually the start now of the Nuwekloof Pass. It's almost like a gate that you enter here. It is now only 7:15 in the morning, so the sun is still sitting relatively low. Oh, isn't this splendid? Yeah. So I'm not quite sure where it is, but one of these corners is called Raaskrans. It's quite an interesting name. Oh, this is the Baviaanskloof Sleutel, or the key. I'm not sure if you can see this. We just go back a little bit. Now, it might not be so clearly visible, but this whole boulder has a crack there behind the tree. So the legend is that if this boulder happens to fall over, the Baviaanskloof will be locked forever. So this is indeed the key from the western side to get into Baviaanskloof. Beautiful. How great is it to barely start riding and already straight into a beautiful, beautiful pass. Yeah. There are a few wet patches on the road. Also yesterday there was some rain, but it was dry last night and not a cloud in the sky at the moment. It is really narrow here. I don't know if you can see on the GPS, but it's quite a few turns. Now this is Raaskrans, so legend have it that this is a tight turn right next to the rock face, and that you actually had to hoot because Raas means to make a noise, so you need to make a noise around this turn to warn others that you are coming. So I suppose we need to follow this legend. How beautiful. Now, let me just make a stop here to have a bit of a look back at this beautiful pass. No, the Nuwekloof Pass, early on a beautiful morning like this, simply spectacular. But yeah, we are now leaving the Baviaanskloof behind. This is the western exit. So yeah, I think, to me, a perfect commemoration of Thomas Bain's work through this pass, to have ridden it. What a joy. But of course this road is a 200-kilometer road that he built all the way from Potensie to Willowmore. Now we will not go to Willowmore today. Earlier in the series I of course did go to Willowmore. So if you want to go and have a look on that trip, yeah, that was also a spectacular trip where I started from the Rust, riding through Meiringspoort, and from Klaarstrom taking the dirt road to Willowmore. We will be making a turn off on another dirt road to go to Uniondale, which is only about 60 kilometers or so away now. Oh, it's a bit of a steep ascent just to get out of the Nuwekloof Pass, but it does give one beautiful views back also to the Nuwekloof Pass. Maybe I should just stay on the road. Yeah, the beautiful, beautiful Karoo Valley opening up here. How beautiful is this? Yeah. There's a double height fence on this side, so obviously there's some game here that the farmer wants to contain a bit. But yo, I saw a few kudus already on this trip, and I could see how they can clear the normal fence easily. I sometimes wonder whether they will not be able to even clear the high one. Yeah, they are so agile. We will be making a turn to the right on this road in about 1 kilometer. But what a lovely ride, because there's a little bit of a breeze, but it's from the back. So it is a smooth ride. There's almost no wind on the helmet. It might be a bit different when I turn now, but I'm still going in that general direction, so hopefully it is still good. No, this part of the Karoo is to me simply stunning. But yeah, there's no part of the Karoo that I don't like. It is just such a beautiful, beautiful space to spend some time, and then to ride it by motorcycle, for me, special. It's the first time I'm riding these roads so far from home, and it is just a wonderful experience. Okay, so Uniondale to this side, and this is to catch up on the N9 highway, because that is the highway that passes by Uniondale. I think this is actually a place, a restaurant also here, maybe some accommodation as well. You can see the wind pump is turning quite vigorously. Yeah, it's a beautiful farm. Yeah. Swartberg means far mountain, but there seems to be like a stall there and a little shop. I must say, this is an excellent dirt road. This one catching up to the N9 on the way to Uniondale. Yeah, it is such a relaxed ride. I'm not taking it fast, keeping it between 60 and 70 kilometers an hour and just enjoying it, savoring this moment, because this is really special. Okay, this is the end of the dirt road. This was quite a long dirt road, at least 200 kilometers on dirt since we left Potensi yesterday. And we are linking up now on the N9, which is the road that will take us to Uniondale, but the N9 is one of the national highways of South Africa, and eventually if you turn to the left you will end up in the town of George. But we have to ride it now to get to Uniondale, which is 29 kilometers away. Yeah, so let me also enjoy a bit of tar road riding in this beautiful part of the Karoo. Yeah. Yeah, we are now very close to Uniondale, so the road twists down here. It's quite a beautiful entrance to the town, making a few sweeping bends. So this is actually called Uniondale Heights that we approach Uniondale from. Yeah, so there is the town of Uniondale, dominated by the beautiful, beautiful Dutch Reformed Church. Yeah. So let me make the turn here. Yeah, so maybe just a little bit of history of Uniondale. So Uniondale is a town that was formed in 1856 when two smaller towns, or two adjacent towns called Hopedale and Lyon, was merged, and it lies here adjacent to the Nuwekloof Valley, which runs along the foothills of the Tsitsikamma Mountains. So yeah, a beautiful little Karoo town. Of course, one cannot talk about Uniondale without talking about the ghost of Uniondale. I think the ghost story of Uniondale is probably the most famous ghost story of any ghost story in South Africa. So maybe just a little bit of the history. So on Easter weekend 1968, a young engaged couple was traveling and had a fatal accident 20 kilometers outside of Uniondale. And the lady, called Maria Charlotte Leroux, unfortunately passed away in this accident. She was sleeping in the back of the Volkswagen Beetle when her fiancé lost control and the car overturned. So that was in 1968, and then in 1976 it was for the first time reported that there's a ghost here. And what happens is, if you travel out on this road approaching Uniondale, you might see a hitchhiker, a lady hitchhiking, and if you pick her up and you then drive after some kilometers she will just simply disappear. And apparently there's been many of these sightings of the ghost of Uniondale. So yeah, this is an interesting legend, and anybody in South Africa knows about the ghost of Uniondale. And now we are in Uniondale. But when I researched a bit for this trip, I realized, there's many interesting things in Uniondale. For example, an aloe factory. So this is the aloe factory. There seems to be an African aloe factory here, but there's also an interesting water wheel, a Boer Fort, and of course then the church, the Dutch Reformed Church, the magnificent Dutch Reformed Church. Well, they call this the Ghost Lady of Uniondale, so I suppose you will now understand why I spoke about the ghost story. Yeah, so there's a few interesting things to see in Uniondale. So let me now first go and look for the water wheel. I'm not sure if I can see it. The reason why I want to see this water wheel is because it's got an unusual large size. So let me try and find it. It seems like the water wheel is just up here. It's a few hundred meters. I need to follow a bit of a dirt road. Let's see if that takes me to the water wheel. This is a nice little road to ride. It was a bit unexpected. It's actually in here. Die Watermeal. So it is a restaurant today. Okay, I just rode around and I could find the water wheel. So let me see. I just need a bit of a level place to stop the bike. This is apparently the biggest water wheel in South Africa. Maybe just a bit of history. It was built between 1852 and 1856 by a certain James Stewart. It has been operated for more than 100 years. It is certainly quite big. It looks like it can be the original still. It is built out of wood. Certainly looks very old. But today the building is a restaurant called Die Watermeal, and it's also an art gallery. Very interesting. But let's continue. There's a few more interesting places in Uniondale that I want to see. Now we're going to have a last look at the water wheel. So this is certainly a very historic site. 170 years old. I find it fascinating. But now I want to make my way to the Dutch Reformed Church, because this is simply a beautiful, beautiful church. I've seen it before, but would like to show you, and then also maybe talk a little bit about the interesting history of that church. This little road to the church will now also take us down the main road of Uniondale, which is called Voortrekker Road. But I also have to get some fuel. So last time I filled up the bike was in Potensie, and I will not pass a lot of fuel stations in the next section of my trip. So let me just see if I spot a station. The Hungry Ghost is the name of this restaurant. 1906 this beautiful building was built. It's called the Oude Bank, so the old bank. Well, I'm not seeing a fuel station at the moment, so let's maybe go to the church first. This is also a small little church. Oh, but there is the magnificent, I can spot it already, the magnificent church building of Uniondale. Just look at it. Yeah. Let me make a stop here in front of the church. And I made a stop at this magnificent church building in Uniondale. So this is the Dutch Reformed Church. It is built out of stone. And maybe just a bit of history. This congregation was already established in 1866. The church was built a little bit later. In 1884 it was completed. But I think the interesting thing about this church is that the tower is not the original one. So there was a more round shaped tower built. Initially with the church in 1884, but within 4 years they noticed the tower is leaking, so it's giving problems, so the architectural design of that may not have been that good. And then by 1896 it was cracked up so much so that they decided, no, this tower needs to be demolished. So in 1896 it was decided to demolish the tower simply because it was becoming too dangerous. And then the church was without tower for quite a number of years because there was no money to rebuild the tower. And only by 1908 the new tower as we see today was built. So the main body of the church, 1884 it was built, and this tower 1908. And I think what is interesting, you can notice the difference. The kind of stone used, the shape of the stones used is different if you compare the tower to the church. But let's have a bit of a closer look. Yeah, that was the beautiful, beautiful church in Uniondale. Okay, but before we leave Uniondale, I need to get fuel, so I'm just gonna find a fuel station, and then we're gonna visit an historic place just outside of Uniondale, and I will talk a bit more about it once we get there. I should be able to get some fuel here. I'm going to take the road up the hill here because I want to go to the Boer Fort. During the time of the Anglo-Boer War, that happened in 1899 to 1902. See, it seems like the fort is this way. There were 5 forts built by the British to, I suppose, defend the town, and some significant skirmishes between the Boers and the Brits took place here. And the Boers actually succeeded in 1901 to take over the town of Uniondale twice. I find that quite interesting, especially if you think how far away Uniondale is from the Boer republics of the time, which was the Orange Free State and the Transvaal. But there were 5 of these forts built, and today one can view one of them that was beautifully restored. And even the restoration of this Boer Fort is interesting because it was restored in 1971 to 1978 by none other than the famous Afrikaans author Daleen Matthee, and she's of course the person that wrote the famous Afrikaans books Villa se Kind and Kringe in die Bos. And she stayed in Uniondale 1971 to 1978 when her husband was, I think he was the bank manager in town. So she took it upon herself to then rebuild or restore one of these Boer forts. But yeah, we need to follow now an interesting little dirt road just to get to the top of the hill. But I'm sure we're going to have very, very beautiful views onto the town of Uniondale from there. But what about some more dirt road riding? I mean, I will never say no to this, especially if it's beautiful little dirt tracks like this one. I can see the fort there in the distance, so it's of course very strategically placed. Can you see it? Seems there's some trees next to it as well. It feels like I'm back in the hell, Uitspan Road, or maybe somewhere in the Baviaanskloof. Yo, whoa! What an exciting little road! Yeah, but it's beautiful views from here. This road goes right around this koppie, just to allow at least an angle that allows one to ride up quite comfortably. There is the stone structure of the fort. Okay, let's go and have a bit of a look. It is a bit windy here up on the hill, but I made it to the old Boer Fort here in Uniondale, or just outside of Uniondale. It is quite strategically positioned. It's got beautiful views over the town. And yeah, I find the history of the Anglo-Boer War always interesting, and to see some of the remnants. It happened so long ago, I mean 1899 to 1902. And then the interesting later history of this fort, where the name of Daleen Matthee is then also associated with the restoration of this fort. I mean, apparently there were 5. I suppose the others were around on top of some of the other hills. But let's go and have a look at this one. I could manage to park quite closely. Yeah, and it seems to be a simple stone structure. There's even a little bench here under the tree. There is a little bit of history here. Yeah, they say Uniondale was occupied by the Boers, 1901. And then there's a bit of a map there of where all the other forts are. So it tells us that we are currently there. The other fort was quite close by, and then Fort 3 and Fort 4. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know where the 5th one was. But yeah, you can see it's all around the town. And this is the structure, so I don't know how much restoration work was needed for the structure, but this is a narrow passage in. Some of the stones have fallen off again, but one can at least enter the fort. So it's just a simple round structure built from stone. And yeah, and this is typically what I suppose the holes would have looked like if you want to put a rifle through. Yeah, so it probably had a roof, at least in those days, but it does give one a sense. And this is what the view looks like across the town. You can see the N9 there in the distance coming in. This is where we came in from Uniondale Heights. And then the church is prominently visible, although the stone color of the church makes it blend in a bit. You might not be able to see it so clearly. Yeah, I find this interesting. I mean, many times or sometimes when you look at some Boer or Anglo-Boer buildings or historic buildings like the blockhouses, many of them have never seen battle. So in this one there was significant battle. I mean, there were some fighting with the Boers. They did occupy Uniondale, and yeah, so this fort typically would have seen battle. Look at this nice little place to just sit and enjoy the view over the town. Oh, that was now an interesting look at the old Boer Fort here on the hill outside of Uniondale. But let's continue. As I mentioned at the start of this trip, the end destination for today is the town of Avontuur. How can you not go to the town of Avontuur if it's called Avontuur? That's of course the Afrikaans word for adventure, and what an adventure this series has been so far. And just looking at the trip today, it was a magnificent ride, and I really found it interesting to catch up on some history here in Uniondale. But the town of Avontuur is only, 17 kilometers away. Oh, let me just get through this really rough patch here. And we will follow the R339 to get to Avontuur, and this is a beautiful road. It is actually called Queen Street, so I assume it is Queen Street that leads out of Uniondale to then go to Avontuur. So this whole road is called Queen Street, but it is a 17-kilometer ride to get to the town of Avontuur. Yeah, so enjoy this beauty with me. I forgot to mention that I also do have a personal link to Uniondale. My mother was born in Uniondale, so indeed, quite a special place for me. Okay, we've made it now back to Queen Street. Now I don't know if this little road has got another name, or this pass has got a name, but yeah, I will simply refer to it as the Queen Street Road. Yeah, and it just snakes through this beautiful valley here. What a joy to ride. Now of course this road to Avontuur is also taking us in the direction of the Prince Alfred's Pass. So when we talk about the Prince Alfred's Pass, we typically refer to it as a road that was built by Thomas Bain from Uniondale to Knysna, which is more than 80 kilometers long. But I think the official start of the Prince Alfred's Pass is only from Avontuur, and of course that is what I'm planning to bring to you in the next video. So this video will end at Avontuur, but just look at this. I mean, this can probably be regarded as part of the Prince Alfred's Pass already. Just look how beautiful this is. Yeah, it's a gem of a little road. Yeah. The cracked structures in the rock is so fascinating. Yeah. Now Queen Street Road is beautiful, and I can only assume that it refers to Queen Victoria, because Uniondale was established or founded already 1856, and that was of course during the long reign of Queen Victoria. She reigned for more than 60 years until she passed away in 1902. So this river I see there on the board is called the Poort River, and this is certainly a port to further beauty, and it is itself a beautiful, beautiful port. Yeah, we've made it now to the little hamlet of Avontuur. So this is, well, the few buildings that you see here, but it's not really a town with a town center that I can see. But importantly, the dirt road that starts there is the start of the Prince Alfred's Pass, and that is why we are going that direction. Of course, Avontuur is also the end point of the Avontuur railway track, the narrow gauge 2-feet railway track that runs all the way to Port Elizabeth, that I talked about in about 2-3 videos back. This is the end point, and that was used a lot for the transport of fruit from the Nuwekloof Valley, because the Nuwekloof Valley now lies to that side, and we are now linking up on the famous R62. For those of you that's been following my channel will know that I've been doing some riding crisscrossing the R62 closer to Cape Town, and this is probably one of the most scenic routes in South Africa, but we're going to ride it only for 500 meters. Yeah, there's a bit of a wind here. Hopefully I get a bit out of the wind if I make the turn. So this is the continuation of the R339, and from here Knysna is 84 kilometers. But before we start this road, I just want to make a quick stop next to the road. Just have a look down here. Oh, this is probably more the center of Avontuur. Indeed, this is the train station, and this must be the narrow gauge, locomotive. Look at it. So this is a very good example then of the narrow gauge train that was used to do that transport of the fruit from Avontuur through the Nuwekloof. Yeah, it's incredible to think that The width of the wheels, only 2 feet on this train. And that railway track was already built late 1890s to 1908, I think, so it operated for a long time. Interesting. So if you come to Avontuur, you can come and have a look at the locomotive of the Avontuur railway line. Oh well, we have now come to the end of this trip. Thank you very much for joining me on that beautiful ride from Uitspan Guest Farm this morning. Starting off with the Nuwekloof Pass. I mean, that was spectacular in the early morning light. And then taking the beautiful, beautiful dirt road to Uniondale and catching up with a bit of history in Uniondale. I mean, the large water wheel, the Boer Fort up on the hill. And yeah, and then making this quick transition through the beautiful Queen Street Poort. I don't know exactly what to call it, but a beautiful little pass. So yeah, I'm finding myself now in Avontuur, and as I said, this is where the trip ends, but it's also where one of the big 3 rides starts for this series. I call this series, of course, the Riding the Big 3, and the Prince Alfred Pass starts here. So I will bring that to you in the next video. So if you enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and then until the next video, keep well and bye-bye.